Our next speaker, Leena Bokil, will bring this flavor of her experience as a NASA space educator in her talk. Leena Bokil, and thank you again for accommodating to swap your session. Please scan the QR code.
येथे सर्व उपस्थित असलेल्यांना माझा सप्रेम नमस्कार. So, Ad Astra, that means over to the stars. I'll take you on a virtual journey and promise to bring you back. Because most of the time I myself get carried away and tend to stay back on Moon, Mars, or stay away. But then that is how Columbus discovered America, right? On the way to come to India, he explored on a wrong path, misnavigated, but then the end result is very important, and that is what science is all about. I believe experiments, the process itself is very fascinating, and then comes the eureka moment, right, finally. So just yesterday we celebrated National Science Day, and I was at a school, Kanya Shala, in Loni Kalbor. Very good. It feels great to reach out to the lowest strata and to the schools where there are very few resources or resource persons. So I make myself available to them. So that in that way, I'm like the Swades movies character Mohan Bhargav. So yeah, when Sucheta ma'am said, can you touch upon data sciences, how AI and ML, they are deployed in space exploration, I said, yeah, well, that is where it all happens. I mean, I got trained at NASA, and I know the very first place where all the science, pure science, applied sciences, and technology, they are the high-tech, sophisticated, state-of-the-art technology gets applied is space. So space is very happening. And then it comes to Hollywood. Yeah, that's the fact. And then it comes to the real industry, like what we saw since morning, the plantation to, governance of cities, smart cities, and digging below the earth, below water, below, we are going down below the earth to unearth what lies inside. And then I always tell my husband, since he is into mining rock technology, so I say that I decided to rule over the space. That is how I came into this field, I mean, on a light note. But yeah, it's been my childhood dream to go to the stars. If not go to the stars, at least imagine. That is what all of us do, right? We look up to the sky, like Professor Stephen Hawking, he said once, we hardly look at what lies below our feet. We always look up to the stars and dream. Each one, I'm sure, is fascinated by the skies, by the space, by stars, by cosmos. Next, yeah. So today is a day, like I've heard all the speakers through, it's a day to salute women. It's all about women empowerment with Pune 2020. My role model since childhood has been none other than Madame Curie, because it was in the lab that she always found solace. There is nothing more wonderful than being a scientist. Nowhere I would rather be than in my lab, staining up my clothes and getting paid to play around with science. So she has been the only Nobel laureate, only woman scientist, pure scientist, who was awarded Nobel Prize for chemistry, physics, and with her husband jointly too, and with her kids into space, into science, pure science. So look at that legacy. Next. So, like ma'am just said, this is what we grew up watching, Star Trek, Enterprise. It's been my dream ship. So it goes to space, the final frontier. We always say it's the final frontier. The Enterprise went to places where no one had even thought or imagined there existed such worlds. Beyond a solar system, beyond a Milky Way galaxy, and beyond, the infinite. Next. So where is AI, ML, and stuff like this applied in astronomy, astrophysics, cosmos, space science, engineering? Yes, it's there everywhere. If we talk about big data in real-time projects and day-to-day lives, then here it is infinite data. Why? Because space is infinite. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's seamless. So that kind of data, the astronomers, astrophysicists collect, and they play around with huge amount, enormous data. So one great application or a career is astronomy, astrophotography. My students have taken this picture, and then they did some special effects. We take students to a farmer's plot and do stargazing. So that is how they do all this and develop skills like this. Today, we get paid very well for astrophotography. We can also send drones with cameras and take pictures and induce in that neural networks, so it makes it all the more beautiful. Next. You must have heard about HST, of course. Who doesn't know Hubble Space Telescope? It's been there in space. What NASA did was, in one of the shuttle programs, they sent the parts by parts, and astronauts went outside the shuttle, and that's called extravehicular activity, EVA, or spacewalk. That is where, outside the shuttle, the astronauts, they built, engineered, and commissioned, assembled the Hubble Space Telescope, and it's been there for many years. So it's taken the best ever pictures of stars, clusters, and even recently, I think it was last year, the black hole picture, which nobody had ever known or seen, because we only imagine. We use optics, we use extreme physics for that. So the astronomers, astrophysicists have taken the best pictures ever. And then what do they do in that? It's not just a telescope. It has got a supercomputer into it. So computation means data and a lot of AI, neural networks, just like what human brain thinks like. All that is induced and put into the HST. Next. Some of the best pictures of galaxies, spiral and our neighboring galaxies, etc. We reside in a Milky Way, in our Milky Way galaxy. So right at the center, there is a black hole in our Milky Way. So how do we even imagine? No astronomers or astrophysicists also had ever got that close. So Event Horizon and all, you must have seen the pictures. Last year, it became very popular. So there are some unimaginable things, and nobody has gone that far. So only AI, probes, or neural networks can go beyond where humans, even our eyesight, like normal telescopes will not show you anything beyond Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, or just to the edge of our solar system. But such extreme HST and technology that incorporates neural networks and AI, that can take us beyond so many light years. Like, believe me, it's 26 million light years and that kind of astronomical distance. Next. We also do use nowadays, we heard of mining and oil and natural gas this morning. What we are trying to do is, there's Deep Space Network and NASA's asteroid tracking department that's only specializing and super specializing in tracking astronauts and asteroids. And why asteroids? Asteroid because they are huge rocks. Asteroids are the richest sources of minerals, like very rare metals, like what we find on Earth, gold, silver, platinum, the most rarest, titanium these days, lithium also. Why? Because batteries are needed for the EV, electric vehicles. So they're becoming more and more precious, and anything that's rare is precious, right? So what we can do by asteroid tracking is, by way of reaching out to asteroids, the rocks, we can try and explore minerals. If we exhaust the resources on Earth, then where do we go? We go to Moon, Mars, and beyond, and we go to the asteroids. Next. Of course, you have heard about this. This is the Smart Martian rover, NASA's InSight, and so many, Curiosity, Phoenix lander, they have landed successfully on the Martian surface. What ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, sent a few years ago, 4 years ago almost, was MOM, Mars Orbiter Mission. It's still in the orbit. You must have seen the movie, Mission Mangal. So it's about the orbiter. It's orbiting, still orbiting in the, revolving around the red planet, Mars. But then what NASA has done successfully, and n number of times, is successfully they have sent such Martian robots or rovers. And my name has gone on one chip. It's engraved on that. So it's all about, I sent a poem, a poetry, 2 lines poetry on the Mars 1. And once my name went on this, and also, by the way, on Parker Solar Probe, that is the probe that's going closest to Sun, closest ever, any object that has ever gone close to the corona of Sun. So that's about space exploration. So what does this rover do is got its own drilling machine. It's fully automatic. No man has been sent there. So it drills below the surface and finds if the soil is soft, then, well, there could have been water droplets, H2O or OH molecule, and so on. And also smart sensors, like what do we do? See, what human beings try to do through AI is what NI, natural intelligence we have, we try to incorporate or build such kind of machines. So nose, eyes, ears, we're using our own sensory organs. So likewise, this sensor will sense the smell of water you get on the soil, right? When it first rains on Earth, we get that smell of oil of wintergreen, like that. So the first drops of water, if they were there, or some traces, or CH4, methane, or marsh gas, etc., to find if life ever existed on the red planet. Next. These were some of my interviews during InSight mission. Next. As a science communicator, previous? Yeah, this is about aliens, extraterrestrials. Now, in 15 minutes, this is not within the scope of this lecture. I can go on and on for an entire day. Aliens and extraterrestrials, do they exist? Yes, they do. But then not like as in this. This is just a picture, but they could be microscopic, primitive kind of organisms, protozoans that existed here on this planet long, long back, million years ago. So NASA has a full-fledged department, and then there's SETI Institute, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. I'm a member of the team SETI and Carl Sagan Center. Next. In Carl Sagan Center, they are trying to find if there are Earth-like habitable planets. So yes, they have found such Kepler B and such exoplanets, not within our solar system, but beyond. Next. And they could host life, not maybe intelligent or super intelligent. Of course, in the Hollywood sci-fi science fiction films, they show that, and I love to watch those films. But then that could be a fiction. But yes, I do believe yesterday's fiction is today's reality. Today's science is tomorrow's technology. Next. Yeah, what I tried to show there, the previous is they found such, paintings and work that humans maybe believe that man was created by God, or if we look at God, they could be aliens. They came here and they created this kind of life. Next. And interestingly, such conversations I always have with Dr. Jayant Narlikar sir, one of my mentors, and Dr. Gowarikar sir, who is my guru, my mentor. And then we keep having such cerebral stimulating talks, discussions. So this is a robonaut that they use in the space station, International Space Station. Yes, next. This one, last week, I was at NASA at the same place where I got trained. So it's the US Space and Rocket Center. Next. Such rolling Justin and kind of robots, they help the astronauts on board the International Space Station to do their work, easily. Next. Yeah, so even our Chandrayaan-2 mission, that was, I'll say, 90% successful, because the lander landed, orbiter is still doing its job. For 7 years, it will continue doing that. But the rover never came out because there was communication device problem. So had it come out, Pragyan, which is a very, Pragyan means wisdom. So artificial intelligence they have utilized in this technology, and that would have done with the smart sensors and intelligent sensors, it would have discovered traces of water, H2O, OH molecules on the south pole of moon. Next. This is Vyomitra. This is going to be Gaganyan's robot. That is our Vyomnauts, Indian indigenous astronauts, will be assisted by such a robot, Vyomnaut or Vyomamitra. Next. One of the space scientists, astrophysicist, Dr. Seth Sostak, who always gives me guidance when I'm writing a science fiction now. So it'll have all that, AI, ML, and that kind of fiction thing. So yeah, like she mentioned, ma'am just said, so many moons have been discovered in the recent times. When we were in school, we heard or read 12 moons. The Jupiter, largest planet in our solar system, has 12 moons, some 9 moons of Saturn, so on and so forth. But AI and ML, they have incorporated all this and discovered so many icy moons around the rings of Saturn that were hidden so far. So what Galileo Galilei discovered, 10 times more, much more than those. But hats off to the conventional scientists. Next, I'm almost done. Yeah. TARS, in the movie Interstellar, you have seen CASE and such robots that can go or explore where no man has ever gone before. Or we cannot take risks, so we can send such intelligent robots. Next. Yeah. So as a science communicator, I have been doing this, spreading the word about science, popularizing space, astronomy, cosmos. Next. A picture taken by my students at our farmhouse plot, the Jupiter and Saturn and Milky Way galaxy. It's not very clear, maybe visible here, though. My students, they have done drone-like autogyro. It was recently covered in Sakal newspaper, and I do appear on Doordarshan, TV9, Sam TV, and almost all the local television channels, as also interviews in Marathi, Hindi, English. Whenever there are launches by NASA, the premier space agency, or Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, European Space Agency, JAXA, except the Chinese Space Agency. But of course, when they landed their orbiter on the far side of moon, I was interviewed once. But then I don't speak much for them because I'm not their spokesperson. Next. This is about how to contact me. So in the last decade, or so, a dozen years, I have been associated with NASA. They have, invited me many times, 6, 7 times. Of course, I went to various centers, Kennedy Space Center, Ames Research Center, at Johnson Space Center, Kennedy twice. Ames, yeah, my student, Hemil Modi, who I mentored, he works for NASA Ames. So whenever I go there, they ask me, are you Kalpana's sister? So actually, next. What I do is, I have been trying to continue Kalpana Chawla's legacy. Though I never went to space, I never went beyond the simulator and beyond the stratosphere, for that matter. But then, Kalpana Chawla's dad, that is Papaji, calls me Kalpana, or Beta. He says in his interviews on YouTube, in a few interviews, he has said, Meri aur ek beti hai, Leena, Pune mein rehti hai. So in continuing that legacy, I have successfully done that because many of the students who come to me to Astro Edu Pune, they have been receiving my guidance, and I did a hat trick. In fact, I've crossed that. So Dr. Kalpana Chawla International Scholarship, awarded by the International Space University, that has been backed by my students every year. And the girls, they come from Kolhapur, Amravati and Baramati and small towns. So this year, thank you. So this year, one girl, Rachel, has been selected at the Space Studies program and a Master's in Space Studies at the International Space University in Strasbourg, France. So I have been learning, I have been educating, and my course that I did from the Edinburgh University, it's on search for aliens and extraterrestrial intelligence. So we are looking at fascinating data that says maybe life elsewhere could be carbon-based, just like Earth, or it could be silicon or phosphorus-based and all. So I'm in that way doing like physics, chemistry, and going back to biology, so astrobiology and such courses. So I'm singularly lucky because Edinburgh has been alma mater to Professor Stephen Hawking, James Clerk Maxwell, Charles Darwin, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and such great eminent personalities. So I feel proud that I belong to such an elite class. So here I conclude, big things are expected of you, and nothing big ever came of being small. So that's William Jefferson Clinton. That is Mr. Bill Clinton's quote. I also am part of the Bill Clinton Foundation and a lot of stuff that takes place in America, but I'm global and I act local. So anything you need in space, astronomy, etc., cosmos, please get back to me. Thank you very much. So first of all, I would also thank Sucheta ma'am, WITS, Pune, and for empowering us and for inviting us to this platform, and we could, share a lot of stuff, and it's been a great networking process for me too. So my guru, my mentor, Dr. Shankara Gowarikar sir, he always says, Leena is like Mohan Bhargav from Swadesh. So I get trained at NASA, I work for my motherland for Swadesh. So that is how Ashutosh Gowarikar, my left-handed friend, fraternity, so he says, yes, that's right. I think we did the movie first, and then we came to know about you. So that's how it is. So I'm living the dreams. I'm, living the character of movies. So that makes me singularly lucky. Thank you for patient hearing. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Leena. And that was indeed Interstellar, Star Wars, and Gravity all power packed together. There have been a lot of questions on your session, but one specific question I think all of the audience would really benefit from, and we'll just take one. And a lot of the people there are interested in understanding how does one start out on a professional career in the space sector?
That's very valid and million-dollar question. For me, it took a long time. I worked at the ground level, being an electronics telecom engineer, even in the lab, instructing students when many said, oh, you should be like a professor, why are you doing this lab stuff? But I don't mind coming down to that level. And I enjoyed that, enjoyed working in the lab, just like Madam Curie said. And then airplanes happened. I mean, I taught in the Aviation Institute where I was given subjects like principles of flight, airplanes, avionics, and then from ground level, 0 kilometer above sea level, to air that is 40,000 feet, 30 to 40,000 feet where airplanes fly, and then space happened. Why? How? Because I applied for, I got to know, and I Googled a lot, I did a lot of research. I got to know that NASA engages STEM educators like me, science, technology, engineering, mathematics professors or educators who can take up this course as a professional development program. It's only for the teachers, science, mathematics teachers. So NASA Honeywell Space Educators Program at the US Space and Rocket Center and Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. That's how I got that dozen years ago. And then I have ever since been, that's been a game changer. So my life changed because a premier space agency invited me, and then I got into it. So when students come to me, I guide them to the engineering students especially, and the science, pure science students. please go to Space University or to US, etc. But then I've promoted a lot of, even the brain drain, but then many are coming back. But you should also know that there is ISRO's Indian Institute of Space Technology for space and space scientists and engineers, and then they absorb you as a fresh graduate, as a scientist, you know. So there are many universities for astronomy, cosmology, space science, engineering in India and abroad. Here, my student, Shruti, she's here. She did MSc in the University of Manchester, UK, in astrophysics. So you just Google and search and find out there are so many, n number of options. But then I have sent maximum students to the Indian Institute of Space Technology, ISRO's IIST, and also to International Space University in Strasbourg, France. So once they were inviting me to study, they thought I'm a college girl, but I said, no, I'm a professor. So I'm an informal educator. So I keep moving to the US often and come back, empowered and enlightened. So just last week I got back from SolidWorks International Conference, and once again my visit to my alma mater, to NASA's US Space and Rocket Center. So space is infinite. There are huge opportunities. You can try. You can get into it. When I can do it, why can't you do it? Because I came from a small town, Belgaum, and then after marriage, I have been in Pune. So anyone can go into this field. And they are not just scientists or engineers that they need. They need MBAs. They need clerical jobs. They need doctors. They need, all kinds of professionals, even artists. Why? Because NASA makes first an artist perception of a mission, and then the engineers make the drawings. That is how it works there. So it's a very fascinating world, and space is where the real action lies. Space is the final frontier. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can email me any, questions.
From space back to Earth, but transforming learning outcomes. So we saw space always has been exciting, but to be able to contribute to that high cognitive domain, we need to ensure a strong educational foundation. Artificial intelligence has the potential to personalize learning experience for each and every child by understanding the child's strengths and the pace of learning in him to help him or her in the teaching style that suits her needs. To share her insights and experience on this and how AI can make a powerful impact in the field of education,